Okay, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, sir. So good evening all. I'm going to present a case of temporomandibular joint ankylosis presenting for condylectomy surgery. So this is my patient, Miss Priya, a 18-year-old resident of Coimbatore. She presented with chief complaints of difficulty in chewing food and inability to open mouth completely for the past 5 years, and history of presenting illness. She was apparently normal till 12 years of age. Then she had a history of fall while playing and sustained injury over the facial area, followed which she had pain for few days and restriction in mouth opening. It was progressive in nature and persistent. No history of loss of consciousness, vomiting or seizure or ENT bleed. No history of
Hang on.
fever, joint pain or
What is the
earache.
first negative history you're telling me? No history of?
No history of loss of consciousness, vomiting, seizure or ENT bleed, sir.
Purpose of this one?
So, if it was associated with any head injury,
I mean,
previously when she had trauma.
the basic problem is she had difficulty in chewing and difficulty in mouth opening for 5 years, which all followed a trauma, right?
Yes, sir.
And this history was mainly focusing on any associated head injury during the trauma, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
fine. Okay, fine. Proceed. Yeah, proceed. Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Pain or earache. No history of swelling, dent or
Sorry,
tooth extraction.
Meera,
No
can
history
you
of difficulty in breathing.
Meera, can you repeat again because it was off for me for quite a few seconds. So from lots of vomiting, loss of consciousness, you can repeat again.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
No history of fever, joint pain or earache. No,
No
history of
history
swelling, growth, burn,
No history of fever,
fever
joint pain,
and earache.
earache. And purpose of this one?
So if it was associated with any rheumatoid conditions, rheumatoid arthritis or any mastoiditis, otitis media.
Okay, any infection associated problems possibly.
Infection.
Okay, but this is going to be a chronic one. It's of 5 years. Anyway, it's fine, right? So you want to rule out any infections associated in the head and neck. Fine. Okay, then.
Yes, sir. And no history of swelling, growth, burns of face and neck.
No history of swelling.
No history of swelling, growth
or burns in the
face and neck.
Okay, fine.
And no history of dental caries or tooth extraction.
All right, no history of dental caries. So how does the dental caries going to produce difficulty in chewing and mouth opening?
Because if the patient has had any septicemia or infection, it may spread to the
all right. So
temporomandibular joint.
basically, you are focusing more of a chronic condition, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is a chronic, slowly progressive, non-infective, followed by trauma, which is not having any active signs of infection now or any signs associated with infection which could cause this one or any parallel associated infection. That's what you're meaning to say this
Yes,
one.
sir.
Okay, fine.
Yes,
Then.
sir. No history of difficulty in breathing or swallowing and speaking.
And purpose of this one?
So patients with TMJ ankylosis, they may have difficulty in speaking or chewing also.
Okay.
But this patient, she did not have that much difficulty, sir. She had only difficulty in mouth opening.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is your presenting history, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, what are the things you missed, right? So there are certain set of questions. Okay, this questions focusing on this patient. Okay, fine, agreed.
Yes.
But
Yes,
there
sir.
are certain other questions which you have to ask when you are proceeding for any difficult airway case. Okay, first thing is
sir.
the patient is having any reflex disorders. Okay, any gastroesophageal reflex disorder. Okay,
Sir.
because these patients anyway is going to be a difficult airway case. So naturally, risk of aspiration is also going to be very high when you're managing this type of patient. So people who got gastroesophageal reflex disease puts them on much higher risk. So next history you have to focus on history of any reflex problems for them. Okay, that's the first thing which you missed. Second thing, though the patient is having a problem in the temporomandibular joint ankylosis or basically the mouth opening is a predominant problem, You have to think of other possible things from the history which could cause a difficult airway management, which has not been seen so far. Like difficulty in chewing, mouth opening is basically focusing towards a TMJ joint problem, right?
Yes,
But
sir.
what are other things from the history which can tell you that the patient is likely to have a difficult airway in terms of mask ventilation or LMA or intubation or whatever it is? So, like history of snoring,
OSAs. Okay, sir.
history of snoring, and history of obstructive sleep apnea. Okay,
Oh,
right.
okay,
So
sir.
this thing has to be definitely because this young female, that too at the age of adolescence, they're more likely to have tonsillitis. Okay, so the
Okay,
tonsillitis
sir.
is one important cause for snoring and obstructive sleep apnea. So those things
Sleep
you have to
apnea.
ask.
Okay,
Okay,
sir.
so that is another important history atta. So
Okay.
reflex one, history of snoring and history of obstructive
Okay, sir.
sleep apnea. Then any history of change in voice, hoarseness of voice,
Okay, sir.
or stridor.
Okay.
Okay, any noisy
Okay,
breathing
sir.
while sleeping or hoarseness of voice.
Okay, sir.
This focus towards problem at the glottic level. Okay, like any nerve involvement,
Okay,
any
sir.
nerve weakness or stridor due to airway narrowing. So these things is apart from TMJ joint issues, these are the additional issues which can make the airway even worse. Okay, so
Okay, sir.
this is the other important issue you have to ask. Next thing is patient having any history of dysphagia or drooling of saliva. This
Okay, sir.
indicates obstruction in the oral tract. Okay, so any dysphagia,
Okay.
any growth in the tongue or the epiglottis, or any growth in the upper part of the pharynx can cause drooling of saliva and dysphagia, which can functionally narrow the airway. So that is another
Okay, sir.
reason why you can have a difficult airway patient. Okay. Next thing is
Okay,
history
sir.
of any neck trauma.
Okay, sir.
This patient is obviously a trauma patient, so you have definitely asked this patient whether she had any history of trauma in the neck. Okay, so those trauma, silent hematomas can get scarred after later surgeries, and that can shrink the neck. That can reduce the compliance of the neck. Okay, so that is
Okay,
another
sir.
important thing you have to ask in the uh, history and assessment of the patient. Then, history of any recent intubations. Right? Of course, this might not be relevant for this case. So any difficult airway cases, like for example, if you're taking the patient for re-surgery within the same day, okay? So any recent intubations, whether it has been traumatic, that history has to be noted when you're examining the history of the patient. Lastly, history of effort tolerance. What is this effort tolerance is? Can he go his regular walk? Everything has been affected because of this airway related issues. That's another important thing you have to ask in the history. So what you have asked so far is fine. Okay, there's nothing wrong. But these histories are also very important in assessing the patient for difficult airway. Okay, history of reflex, history of snoring and obstructive sleep apnea, very important. History of stridor or change in the voice, hoarseness of voice, history of dysphagia or drooling of saliva, history of neck trauma, any recent intubations, and lastly, effort tolerance. So this history has been given in the guidelines mentioned by different airway societies across the world. Okay, so these are important history part when it comes to assessing the patient, particularly coming for difficult airway. Okay, got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, rest all guys, is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Lovely. Okay, fine. You can proceed, Dr. Meera now.
Okay, sir. Past history, no history of diabetes mellitus, bronchial asthma, tuberculosis, epilepsy or jaundice, no history of previous major surgery, anesthesia exposure or drug allergy.
Is that enough in the past
Next,
history? So you said no history of diabetes. How significant it is for in a patient with difficult airway?
in case of if it's long-standing diabetes, stiff joints, so it may be a difficult airway.
How come the diabetes is going to produce a difficult airway?
Um, there'll be abnormal glycosylations, which
Yes.
is very
Okay.
common in case of
So
cervical.
all the joints are nothing but the hyaline cartilage. Okay. This cartilage gets glycosylated because of high blood sugar. So when they get glycosylated, they get inflamed and they go for fibrosis for a long-term diabetic patients. So that specifically involves the atlanto-occipital joint as well as the fine joints in the hand. So that is why in patients with diabetes, we look for what?
Prayer sign and palm print.
Palm print and prayer sign. Okay, that we
Yes,
can
sir.
discuss in the examination. Don't worry. So prayer sign and palm print is basically to see for the involvement of the interphalangeal joint. So involvement of interphalangeal joints is an indirect indication that the cervical spine joint could also get involved in because of the abnormal glycosylation of the long-standing glucose-induced fibrosis of joints. Okay,
Yes,
good.
sir.
So diabetes is one significant. Next thing you said, no history of previous surgery. All right.
Yes, sir.
How significant
sir.
it is in this case?
Because in temporomandibular joint ankylosis, there will be a history of stepwise surgeries, corrections, like arthroscopy followed by arthroplasty. So
Is it
patient
that
would,
important, or is it anything we are more concerned about asking about any previous surgeries? Previous surgery history is very important.
airway
Yeah.
regarding intubation, last previous
Yes.
surgery, how
So
was the airway secured?
how bad was his intubation during his previous anesthetic? That is what is more important when you ask in your past history. If the patient has had any anesthetic in the past, how bad it is, whether there is a difficulty in mask ventilation or it is an intubation or it is both, whether they had a traumatic intubation or whether there is an unexplained ICU admission in the post-operative period. All these things has to be asked if the patient has got a previous surgery. Okay. So
Yes, sir.
any traumatic intubation, difficulty in mask ventilation or intubation, right? Any unusual ICU admission post-op because of air-related issues, and any long-term ventilator kept in the post-operative period.
Yes, sir.
So these are things you have to focus on, airway-related issues in a patient coming for difficult airway surgery. Perfect. Okay. Then you said there is no previous history of what?
Major surgery, anesthesia, or drug allergies.
Okay, fine. So previous surgery, then previous history of neck surgery. That is more important. Second thing. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Like a thyroidectomy surgery or thyroglossal cyst surgery or any major surgery in the neck. What happens when you do a neck surgery?
The space will be reduced.
Yes. So when the
com-
neck scar is healing, what happens? It's going to make the neck more stiff. Okay. The compliance of the neck is going to reduce. The compliance of the neck is more important because all the neck soft tissue has to be soft for the intubation to happen smoothly. So when the compliance of neck is affected in any way, right? So that could definitely is going to impact in your laryngoscopy and intubation of the patient. So previous history of difficult intubation, like these 4 questions, then previous history of neck surgery. Okay. So next important thing in the past history is history of any neck radiation. Neck radiation, right? Neck radiation is another reason for neck scarring. Okay. So neck radiation, neck surgery. These two are 2 important histories in the past history. And then other things is history of burns. Of course, you got that in the personal history, right? So that can be ignored. Then history of rheumatoid arthritis. This important thing you missed. History of rheumatoid, history of any ankylosing spondylitis. These 2 history are very vital in a patient with difficult airway. Okay.
Yes.
So this thing you missed, right? So this case pertaining to this difficult, I mean, you're not going to ask rheumatoid arthritis in all the patients. Whereas when you come to difficult airway cases, you have to focus on the past histories, the conditions which is going to impact your airway management. So that's how your history should be focused on. Okay. So knowing about bronchial asthma, knowing about epilepsy, it's been a part and part of anesthesia, but it's not more significant of knowing those things. Whereas all the C5 questions, right? History of diabetes, history of rheumatoid arthritis, history of ankylosing spondylitis, previous surgery and any related issues in this, history of neck surgery and neck irradiation. So these are important things which comes in the part of past history in a case for difficult airway. Okay,
Yes, sir.
good. Proceed.
Personal history, she consumes mixed diet, sleep is adequate, bowel and bladder habit normal.
Okay.
Menstrual history, she attained menarche at the age of 13 years. Regular cycle, no significant history. And family history, no significant family history. On general examination, shall I proceed, sir? Or?
Yeah, proceed. So,
On general examination, patient is conscious, cooperative, oriented to time, place, and person, average build, adequately nourished, afebrile, no pallor, icterus, cyanosis, clubbing, lymphadenopathy, or pedal edema.
okay.
Vitals, pulse
Right.
rate.
So this again, I'm telling you are looking the general examination like you do a normal case. So there must be something different in the general examination you do pertaining to this case, isn't it? So what
Yes.
other things you have to mention in your general examination?
Like
Okay,
any, okay, sir.
you have to mention is anthropometrics, BMI. Okay, general examination mentioning his BMI is very vital, right? Did he mention his BMI? No.
It was, I wrote it in vitals at
Okay,
the
fine.
last.
Right. If you have written it, very good. Okay. Don't forget to mention the BMI. Then any obvious facial asymmetry.
Yes, sir.
Because this is what? Because this is an airway case, isn't it? So
Yes,
in a
sir.
general examination, you are more focusing on things which is going to impact in your airway management. Knowing about Pala Rictus, again, I'm saying it's all a part of examination. But your examination focus should be more on any airway related issues, starting from history to end of any case. Okay. So in general examination, make sure the patient you mention the BMI. Second thing is any obvious facial asymmetry, right? So if there is facial asymmetry, there could be some congenital problems, right? In addition
Yes.
to TMJ issues like trichotillomania, golden heart, so many congenital syndromes are there. Okay, so any obvious facial asymmetry. Then if it is a male patient, presence of beard.
Yes.
You have to mention that presence of beard. Okay. Then in general examination, oral cavity. You are doing that in the airway examination, huh? Oral
Yes,
cavity
sir.
examination. Okay,
Yes, sir.
fine. So these three things, don't forget to mention the airway case. So this will convey the examiner that you are concerned more about the airway and you're looking for the features which you have to look in your general examination. So that's how you have to convince.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Right. I have an idea about this
Yes,
case.
sir.
It's going to be a difficult airway. So I'm focusing my examination more of an airway related issues. Okay.
Okay, sir.
You got the point
Okay,
what
sir.
I'm telling.
Yes, sir.
Good. Proceed.
Okay, sir. Vitals, pulse rate of 88 per minute, regular rhythm, normal volume, no radio radial or radio femoral delay, all peripheral pulses felt. Blood pressure 100 by 60 mm of mercury in right arm in supine position. Height 152 centimeters, weight 55 kilograms, and body mass index of 23 kilograms per meter square.
Okay.
Summarizing,
Yeah.
a 18-year-old female presenting with progressive inability to open mouth and difficulty in chewing food for the past 5 years with the past history of trauma. So it's probably a case of temporomandibular joint dysfunction. So I'd like to examine
Okay, so
uh,
what is the pathology
the
of
airway.
temporomandibular joint ankylosis? How does it develop basically?
So temporomandibular. So the temporomandibular joint ankylosis, it is the loss of joint movement, which may occur either unilateral or bilateral. So the etiology may be because of fusion of bones within the joint, or it may be because of ligament calcification.
Okay, good. Okay,
So
temporomandibular joint pathophysiology is a very, very complex one. They're still evaluating what is the exact cause. So don't worry about it. That's not part of our issue. See, where is the airway examination?
after this, I'm going to,
You're going
after
to going to
summarizing
summarize
and
and you're going to go
yes,
for airway
yeah,
examination, right?
airway examination.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
fine. Start with your airway examination.
On airway examination, external faces appears to be normal. Bilateral nasal cavity patent with the right side patency is more than the left. Mouth opening is adequate. Inter-incisor distance of 4 millimeter.
Okay, so how will you divide airway examination? You're going to divide into upper airway and
Lower airway.
lower airway, right? So in
Yes, sir.
upper airway, what are the things you're going to look for?
Facial
You said
symmetry.
facial symmetry, right?
Yes, sir.
Or any dysmorphic features. Then,
Features. Nasal cavity patency.
okay, patency of nasal cavity. Okay, then.
Then the oral cavity.
So why do you want to check the patency of nasal cavity?
In order to find out which nasal cavity is patent in case of difficult airway, if you are planning to do a nasotracheal intubation,
Okay, so if you're planning for nasal intubation, you want to see which nasal tract you want to choose for. So that's the reason you're going to check
patency.
for the nasal patency. Okay. What test you do to check the nasal patency? How do you check the nasal patency?
Yes, sir. By asking the
Spatula
patient to
test.
occlude pattern.
Okay.
Uh,
What is spatula
okay.
test? Let's tell guys,
Yes, sir.
please be quiet, guys. What is spatula test?
So the patient will be asked to occlude one of the nasal cavity and to expire through the other,
Okay.
and with the spatula placed just below the nasal cavity.
Okay. So one which is producing a greatest turbulence, you have a better nasal cavity. Okay.
Patency.
Fine. Right. Then.
Then the teeth, sir. Presence of
Okay.
any buck teeth or
In teeth,
edentulous.
what are the things you have to look for when it comes to teeth?
Teeth, any
So first, whether there is teeth or not. Okay. Edentulous.
edentulous.
Okay. Then
Buck teeth.
buck tooth. Any prominent tooth or buck tooth?
Buck teeth.
Then
Yes, sir. Malalignment.
malalignment. Okay. Then
Any loose tooth or any
any loose tooth.
dentures.
Perfect. Any loose tooth. Any dentures. Fine. Then
Then hygiene of the oral cavities.
okay. Teeth hygiene. How hygiene is going to affect you? How
In
come
case of
hygiene is yeah?
if the since this case is a restricted mouth opening, the patient will not be able to maintain oral hygiene. So it will indirectly tells us.
Okay. Irrespective of this mouth opening, if the patient is having poor oral hygiene, how concerned it is for the
Nutritional deprivement maybe there, sir. Or
okay, you have nutritional impairment. How the teeth hygiene is going to impact an anesthetist from the anesthesiologist perspective? Why teeth hygiene is important? All right. So when the patient is having caries or poor oral teeth hygiene, the chances of teeth injury during intubation is very high. Okay. So all the gums will be very weak in a caries tooth. Okay. So when the patient is having any caries in the incisors, what happens? That's the point where you're going to put your laryngoscope, right? So when you accidentally touch the tooth, it will be highly compliant compared to a normal teeth. So naturally, a teeth which is being carried or it's being infected tend to have a very loose gum attachment. So the incidence of teeth injury is very high in a patient who's maintaining poor oral cavity. Okay.
yes.
Then what is the importance of asking about dentures?
In case if it is a removable, one will ask the patient to remove prior to.
Will you ask the patient to remove? I'll say no.
But if it's a difficult mask ventilation of a patient, if you're not able to ventilate the patient, we can keep the denture and ventilate. Once after ventilating, we
Yeah.
can remove,
So
and while intubation, we can.
dentures are more important because dentures try to maintain the facial contour. Okay, facial anatomy. So when you remove the dentures, you're going to face two problems. Okay, mask ventilation is going to be extremely difficult because all the cheek tissues are going to get shrink inside. Okay, because of the absence of denture. So that produces facial dysmorphism or the facial asymmetry. So that prevents proper mask seal. So if the patient is having dentures, you put the dentures, mask ventilate, but before intubation, try to remove the dentures. Okay.
Yes.
So that is the importance of knowing about the patient's dentures. Okay. Second thing is any patient is having any crowns. Okay. Crowns or cap. So this is another important issue you have to ask because these crowns and caps are very, very expensive. Right.
Okay.
So some patients, they specifically tell when they come to pre-op assessment, this is my crown teeth, very expensive. Please take care of that because it takes almost nearly 20 to 25,000 to fix a teeth. So when the patient is having a crown teeth, you should be extremely careful that you don't damage those teeth because these are all not native teeth. These are all foreign one. Okay. So history of crowns and caps, dental hygiene, dentures, edentulous patients, bucktooth are going to be a part of. It's a sign that this patient is going to likely to have a difficult laryngoscopy or a difficult intubation.
Mask.
Okay. Importance of dentures we discussed, importance of teeth hygiene we discussed, and importance of crowns and caps. Okay.
Yes.
Good. So you have done the facial symmetry, right? You have done the nasal patency. Then you have checked the teeth. What is next?
Next, the tongue, sir. Any
Okay, tongue
a
examination.
tongue,
What
the
is looking
size
at
of
the tongue?
the size of the tongue.
Okay, is it the size? I don't know how to get the size. Okay, fine. Let's assume that
Okay.
size of the tongue.
Okay.
Then more important than the size, what is more important?
The Malampati scoring, sir.
No.
Oral airway.
No. Importance of tongue, you said size, agreed. What is
Yes.
next most important thing related to the tongue? Then you see for the tongue. Right. You have to look for the compliance, whether the tongue
Okay,
is
sir.
hard. If there is any growth within the tongue structure, what happens? It will be very stiff, right? It will be very hard.
Yes, sir.
So only when the tongue is soft, you can push the tongue forward into the mandibular space, right? So
Okay,
when
sir.
the tongue is very hard, it is naturally going to impact your laryngoscopy. So more than the size, the compliance of the tongue, most important thing is the mobility of the tongue.
Okay,
Whether
sir.
the patient's tongue mobility is normal, whether he can rotate forward, inwards, lateral, left and right. Okay.
Yes.
So size, compliance, mobility. All these things are important to be seen in your tongue examination. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Fine.
Yes.
Then
Then coming to the oral cavity assessment, sir, Mallampatti
okay,
grading.
you're gonna check for the oral cavity assessment, and first thing is comes into the Malambati. Is it Malambati or before that anything important?
Modified Mallampatti, sir. Young's and Samson's modified Mallampatti.
Before modified. Before going for Malambati, there is one other examination in the tongue, in the mouth.
High arch.
No, it's still not gone into the tongue. I mean, into the mouth.
Upper
The
lip
mouth
tongue.
opening.
Mouth opening, right? So that is the
Yes.
most important first thing when you step. So when you go order by order, you don't miss anything, right? You have seen the nose, you have seen the teeth now. Now you're going to ask the patient to open the mouth. Okay, go
Yes,
step by step so that you don't miss anything. In mouth opening, what do you look for?
Mouth opening, we will be checking the adequacy of mouth opening, sir,
Okay,
so
well,
that
when do you say it is an adequate mouth opening?
ease of. So we'll be asking the patient to keep his three fingers, that is the index, middle,
Okay,
and
minimum
the
three
fourth finger
finger,
into
three finger breath is
three
essential
fingers.
for to predict that it is going to be
Mouth
an easy
adequate.
laryngoscopy or difficult laryngoscopy. All right. Or in other terms, if the
Yes.
mouth opening is less than 3.7 centimeter, it is going to increase the risk of difficult laryngoscopy. Right.
Yes, sir.
Then what else you're going to see in mouth opening?
And the upper lip bite test, sir.
No. That's a long way to go. Not now. Inter-incisor gap. That's the next thing you're going to look for.
Distance. Yes, sir.
Okay, inter-incisor gap. Okay, so what is the threshold to say it is difficult?
Less than 5, sir.
Okay, for an intubation, you should have inter-incisor gap of more than 5 centimeter for
Centimeters.
easy intubation. Anything else?
And for supraglottic airway device, it should be more than 3.
More than 4
3.5.
centimeter for supraglottic airway. Okay, for
Yes.
easy, right?
Yes, sir.
So if the patient having inter-incisor gap of less than 5 centimeter, intubation is going to be difficult. Less than 2.5 centimeter, LMA insertion is going to be difficult. Less than 2 centimeter, intubating LMA insertion is going to be difficult, right? So remember these three things, okay? So for an easy intubation, you need more than 5. For an easy supraglottic airway insertion, you need more than 4 centimeter. If it is less than 5, intubation is going to be difficult. If it is less than 2.5, LMA insertion is going to be difficult. If it is less than 2, intubating LMA insertion is going to be even more difficult. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So you have seen the nose, you have checked the patency, you have seen the tongue. Now you ask the patient to open the mouth, you have checked the inter-incisor gap. Okay?
Yes.
Good. Let's move on. What is next in the examination? See, all these things has to be mentioned in the difficult airway case. Don't leave any parameter, okay? Why there are so many parameters in airway examination, Dr. Meera? Why do you think there are so many
Because the
parameters?
sensitivity and specificity will differ,
Yeah,
sir.
right. Basically, in predicting difficult airway or difficult intubation or difficult mask ventilation is very difficult by one single parameter alone because of the low sensitivity and low specificity of all the tests which you have available clinically. Okay, why the sensitivity and specificity are very poor?
Because a few tests, they'll be giving like true positives, or if a difficult
No, the thing is
intubation.
now, why these tests are not very sensitive, why these tests are not very specific, whatever test it is. All right, no worries. Okay, it's basically a test will be very sensitive only when its prevalence in the population is very high. Okay.
Okay.
So, for
Okay,
example,
sir.
if you're doing RT-PCR for the COVID-19, since its prevalence in the general population is very high, that increases the sensitivity of the test. Whereas the incidence of difficult airway in the general population is very less. Okay. So when the incidence of any particular problem is very less, whatever test you innovate to identify that problem, its sensitivity will always be very poor. Okay, so that is why
Yes.
all the airway related tests and airway related issues or identification of markers are having very poor sensitivity and specificity because of its poor prevalence in the general population. So even after doing so many tests, even after doing so many assessments, there is one study conducted in Danish population. Okay, there they have examined around 1,88,000 intubations, of which 93% were unanticipated. Despite doing a proper examination, despite doing a complete airway assessment, 93% of intubations were unanticipated. Of the predicted patients, say for example, if they predicted some 1,000 patients as difficult, only 25% of the patients were really difficult. Remaining 75 patients were easy beyond the expectation. Okay, so what does this study convey to us? So consider all patients as a difficult type of patient. Okay, that's the first thing you have to remember, because whatever test you predict, you seem to be easy. You see that in this study, 93% of the patients were unanticipated, which means you don't predict in the pre of examination, but eventually landed up in having a difficult target. So this clearly indicates that whatever test you do in combination is not going to help you that much. So be prepared for any patient to face a difficult airway. Okay,
Yes, sir.
good, excellent. Where were we standing?
Airway
Okay,
examinations
airway
after the.
examination, sensitivity and specificity, and reason why it is very poor. This is the reason because it's a,
Excuse me, sir.
yeah.
Excuse me, sir. So kindly repeat the inferences from this Danish study which you just.
Okay, so 1,88,000 patients were examined, of which 3,500 patients tend to have a difficult intubation. In this 3,500 difficult intubations, 93% were unanticipated, which means though they've examined this 1,88,000 patients complete airway examination and predicted to be normal, okay, where they didn't expect a patient tend to have difficult airway, 93% of the patient tend to have an unanticipated difficult airway, which means despite though the examination is normal, this 93% of this 3,500 difficult intubations was normal during their examination. Okay. Second inference was only 25% of the predicted patients who found to be difficult tend to be actually difficult during intubation. Remaining 70 patient who was expected to be difficult eventually ended up having a easy intubation. So this shows that whatever the examination you do is not going to be highly sensitive specific. So be prepared for difficult airway in any patient. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Good. So now let's move on to next airway examination. Good. You come through mouth opening is over, interstitial gap is over, tongue examination is over. Next you're going for Malambati.
Sir, can I ask a question, sir?
Yeah, please.
Sir, how mouth opening and inter-incision gap, are they different thing or same thing? I
Mouth
think.
opening, you're gonna look only from lip to lip. Okay. Interstitial gap, you're gonna calculate specifically from the teeth to teeth.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Malambati grading.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so of course, you know, this is you must to know. I think this is the first thing you learn in your anesthesia career. So 4 grades,
Yes.
naturally grade 3 and grade 4 are going to be very difficult.
Difficult.
So just remember, don't get confused in each grade how to differentiate all the things, and each grade what does it disappear. Many people tend to get confused during their exam time, which is disappearing, which is not disappearing in grade 3 and grade 4. Okay, so be very clear with this examination because it's a very basic thing they expect from you. Right? Can you tell me a few disadvantages of using Malambati grading?
Malambati, there'll be observer variations will be
Right.
there,
So
sir.
first thing, there is huge inter-observer variability. Excellent. Then,
If the test is not done properly, if the patient is set to phonate, the grade will be
okay,
reduced, sir.
phonation can affect the grading.
Grading.
Then,
And in case of obstetric patient, the Malambati, it will be, it will not be static, sir. It will tend to change, so we will not be able to depend on that.
Okay, fine. Next thing, as we discussed already, poorly sensitive and poorly specific, right? Sensitivity is just only 37%, specificity is around 62 or 70 to 80%. Okay. And last thing, in emergency scenarios, like for example, if you're going to intubate a patient in your accident and emergency, A&E, what happened? That patient is in very sick. You can't make him to sit and ask him to open his mouth. So in emergency situation, examining the patient mouth opening just by supine posture is going to definitely affect your actual reliability of Malamberti scoring. So emergency situation, it is not highly valid. Large inter-observer variability, phonation can affect, and last thing, it is poorly sensitive and poorly specific. Okay, so these are the 4 disadvantages of using Malamberti grading for clinical examination. However, it is the most basic test performed at the bedside because it is very easy to perform. Good. Still, guys, unmute and tell me whether they're able to follow me so far.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
Sir, uncooperative patient and pediatric patient also we can't do.
Yeah, uncooperative patient, right? Uncooperative patient, you have to give him a slap, otherwise there is no way. So just leave it, right? Uncooperative patients, again, examine is going to be really difficult. Good. And what?
So,
Yeah.
sorry, sir. Sir, in kids, since from what age should we start examining MPC grading?
In kids system, okay, right? Less than 6 years, unless a baby is going to cooperate, it is going to be really difficult to have a Malamberti grading. Okay. The only way of doing airway assessment in the kids is hoping that it will be, if the facial morphic features are normal, if the baby is not having any accessory muscles usage or any clinical evidence of stridor, it is considered as a straightforward airway. Okay, because you can't do an airway examination in a pediatric patient, particularly when they're less than 6 years. They might not cooperate. Okay.
Okay.
So that's why there is, yeah.
Yes. So modified.
Pediatric, can you repeat?
I mean, pediatric, there is no any specific airway examination, but when the babies are growing up during their growing period, when the primary tooth are replaced by secondary tooth, those time you're going to be very, very careful because some babies come with partially shaking tooth, which is the primary tooth, which is not fallen down. So at that time, the teeth examination plays a very, very key role in pediatric patients. Okay, basically don't concentrate much. So any pediatric patient, ask them specifically if they have any loose tooth, because when the dentition is going to change, naturally they tend to have one or other times 1 in 100 cells tend to have a loosened teeth coming for your anesthesia management. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
So one question. Sir, there is a difference in Malamberti score and grading.
No, actually,
These are two different things or
no,
same
no,
thing?
there is nothing. There is nothing actually. There is a naturally called Malamberti score. It is only Malamberti grading.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Right. Okay, Dr. Meera, let's come back. So we have come to Malamberti. Malamberti is seen. So what is the Malamberti score of this patient? Oh, we didn't discuss about this patient. So what is the mouth opening of this patient?
3.5, sir. It was.
So it was 3.5. So which indicates,
Yes.
which indicates it's going to be a risky intubation. What is the interincisor gap? You didn't check, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, don't worry. So when
No, we didn't measure, sir. I didn't measure.
yeah, you have to measure in this patient, right? So
Yes.
important thing that is missed. Okay, so note it down. When an exam comes, don't miss this. And did you check the tongue?
Yes, sir.
Tongue is normal.
Tongue was normal and compliance were normal. Sir.
Okay,
It was
fine.
mobile in all
Okay,
directions.
what is the
No response.
Malamberti?
Malamberti, it was, I couldn't appreciate that, sir. Malamberti, because of restricted, she had pain, sir, now.
Okay, maybe she not able to open the mouth.
Yes, sir. She's not able to open the mouth.
Okay, so Malamberti grade 4. Lovely. Right. What is the next thing you're gonna do?
Palate was, like visible palate was normal, sir.
You said there is no Malamberti grade 4. Did you able to see the palate?
Hard palate, sir.
Okay, you saw the hard palate. Hard palate seems to be normal. Fine.
Yes,
Then-
sir. Then the neck movement, sir.
Okay, order by order. Next. Is the next moment is the next comes the next in the airway examination? No.
No, sir.
Excuse me,
All right.
sir.
Yeah.
Sir, if the patient cannot open the mouth, can we write it as Malamberti 4?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, because see how much whether able to see the heart pilot. If you're able to see the heart pilot, you can bold it at Malamati 4. If you're not able to see that, just mention that Malamati could not be assessed in this patient.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Sir, is there any Malampati zero, sir?
Malamati 0 is nothing but when you see the epiglottis.
Thank you.
Okay, right. So the thing is now, when it comes to airway examination, right? So the airway examination is mainly done to assess a patient whether the patient is going to have difficult mask ventilation or difficult intubation or difficult supraglottic airway insertion. Okay, so in order to make sure you don't forget any of the airway examination, you have to think of what are the things needed for airway or what are the things needed for intubation. For an easy intubation, what are the important anatomical things needed for the patient to work properly so that you can intubate the patient easily. So only when you think of in those way, you don't miss anything, right? First thing, the patient should have good mouth opening, okay, to put the scope inside. Got it?
Yes.
That you have checked. Second thing, the interincisor gap has to be normal so that because you can find there is no any buck tooth, no prominent tooth or no prominent incisor so that you don't produce any teeth injury. Second thing, which you have done. Third thing, once you put the scope, you're going to push the tongue. So the compliance of the tongue and the mobility of the tongue is important, which it said. Fourth thing, after putting the laryngoscope, what you're going to do, you're going to tube the patient. So you need some working space inside your mouth. So in order to have a good working
Mandibular
space,
space.
you're going to look for the Malambati grading. So scope is inside,
Yes.
tongue is there, Malambati score is examined. So what is the next step you do in intubation?
The swiping of tongue, so mandibular space.
Okay, so you're going to
essentially.
push the tongue in the mandibular space,
Yes.
right? So what is the next
Yes.
examination comes in?
So the thyromental distance.
Yes, thyromental distance. So you just think yourself in order what you're going to do in intubation, you will not forget any test, right?
Yes.
So now the scope is inside, now you're going
Yes.
to push the tongue. So in order to push the tongue into the mandibular space, you have to check few things. And the first thing comes is the thyromental distance.
Thyromental
And
distance.
what is any name for this? Partils.
Yes, okay.
Partils thyromental distance, okay? Good.
Yes.
So what is thyromental distance and what do you do basically in thyromental distance?
So we'll be measuring the
Hello? I think the line is not clear. Others able to hear me?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, let's wait for her. I think she's not speaking. What happened to mic? Hello? Hello, Meera. Okay, she got disconnected. Just hang on.
Hello.
Yes, Meera, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. I can
Yeah.
hear you, sir.
So now comes to the thyromental distance. Okay, what do you do in thyromental distance? Why it is done? And how do you do?
So this is for assessment of the mandibular space, sir.
Okay.
So this is the distance which covers between the thyroid notch to the mental symphysis when the neck is fully extended.
Okay, neck fully extended. That's the most important thing. Full neck extension, right?
Yes, sir.
Mouth is closed. All these things are important. Mouth is closed, neck fully extended. And you're going to measure from thyroid notch to the mentis. Okay?
Chin, that is my
Chin,
yes,
all right? Mouth closed. Right. So this is basically assessing the mandibular space,
space.
which is where you're going to push the tongue for intubation. Okay. So what is the parameters?
If it is more than 6.5 centimeter, there will be no difficulty in laryngoscopy.
Okay. Between 6 to 6.5.
There will
It's
be
going
difficult,
to be
but possible.
difficult but possible intubation. Less than 6, highly
it is
impossible. Impossible to intubate this patient. Okay. Is there anything improvised in the thyromental distance recently?
Thyromental height, sir.
Yes, because the thyromental distance is affected by patient's height and ethnicity. So that is why recently they've introduced ratio of height to thyromental distance. Okay. This is found to be more sensitive compared to thyromental distance alone. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I
Yes, sir.
forgot the value. Just go and check it. Okay. Ratio of height to thyromental distance.
So some
Okay.
23.5.
Okay.
less
That's
than.
23.5. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're fine. So if it is less than 23.5, that is going to be difficult. Am I right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the ratio of height to thyromental distance. Excellent. So what is the thyromental distance of this patient?
This was 7.2, sir. 7.2.
7.2. So which is well in the safety margin.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Excellent. Now, what is the next other thing you look
Sternomental distance, sir.
before that? Just think of what do you do during a scopy. What are the other important space for the tongue to get pushed inside?
Higher mental.
Yeah, high mental distance. That is the next thing. This is again where you're gonna push the tongue. Tongue is going to get accommodated there. So higher mental distance. Hello, Meera, are you there again? Your connection has got out again.
Higher mental distance.
Yeah, higher mental distance, right. So what is higher mental distance and how do you measure it and what is the significance of that?
So this also tests the adequacy of the mandibular space. So
Okay.
it is the distance between the mentum and the hyoid bone.
With full neck extension and
Neck
mouth
and
closed.
mouth closed.
Okay, complete the sentence. Okay, that makes more sense. Good. And what is
If
the
it
safety
is
margin?
grade 1, it is more than 6 centimeters, sir.
More than 6 centimeter, it is safe.
And 4 to 6 will be moderate, so grade
4
2.
to 6 centimeter will be moderate difficulty.
And
less
than 4
is
will
going to
be difficult.
very difficult, right? So that is come
Yes,
to the
sir.
higher mental distance. So what is higher mental distance in your patient?
This was 6.2, sir.
6.2 centimeter. Again, well in the safety margin. Right.
Yes, sir.
So now you have put the scope, you have pushed the tongue to mandibular space. What is the next thing you do in your intubation?
So actually, before that, we'll do neck extension also. So when
No,
should I
before
tell them?
before neck extension. Leave out neck extension will come last. What is the next thing you do?
Then
Jaw protrusion.
Relax, guys. Relax, please. Others, please be quiet. What is the next thing you do, Meera?
Cormac modified.
No. We have just put the scope, you have pushed the tongue. We are at that stage. What is then? So this will again will
Mandible.
tell you a proper way of learning of intubation. Next thing, you're gonna lift the jaw, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're gonna push the scope, then swipe the tongue away, then lift the jaw. That's the next thing you're gonna do. Yes or no?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so to lift the jaw, you have to look for the jaw mobility, or in other terms, the temporomandibular
Temporomandibular
joint,
joint.
temporomandibular joint mobility. What are the things
Yes,
you
sir.
look for the temporomandibular joint mobility?
That mouth opening we have already.
Okay, mouth
seen, sir.
opening we have done already. Then,
Yes, sir.
Upper lip bite test.
okay, good.
Upper lip
Guys,
bite
others, please be quiet, please. Let's give Meera a chance. So first thing is going to be upper lip bite test. Any name for this one? Khan's.
Yes.
Khan's upper lip bite test. And there are 3 grades. What are those 3 grades?
Class 1 will be the lower incisors can bite the upper lip above the vermilion line.
Vermilion border. Okay.
Yes, sir. 2 will be below the vermilion border, sir.
Okay.
And 3 will not be able to
Will
bite
not
the
reach the
upper lip.
vermilion border, right? So this test, has got 78% sensitivity and 95% specificity. Okay. So which is very, very vital for intubation. So Khan's upper lip bite test. Then any other test for TMJ mobility. Jaw protrusion.
Okay, sir.
Jaw protrusion. Okay. Right. So what do you think? Again, there are 3 grades, right? So lower incisor crossing the upper incisor. Lower incisor at the level of upper incisor. Lower incisor is behind the upper incisor. So these are the 3 grades. Again, grade 2 is moderate difficulty. Grade 3 is going to be extremely difficult. Did you check the upper lip bite test in this patient?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is the grading in upper
It
lip
was
bite?
grade 2, sir.
It
Class
is-
2, sir.
Okay. So upper lip bite test is grade 2. Did you look for the jaw protrusion? No.
sir.
Jaw protrusion is very important. Okay, don't forget to miss that, because only when the upper lip bites, the jaw protrusion are very good, you can lift the jaw, so the mandible will come forward so that you can visualize the epiglottis. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So these two may test for TMJ mobility. Excellent. Now you have put the scope inside, you have pushed the tongue, you have lifted the jaw. Next is going to be
Yes,
the extension or the neck
Yes, sir.
extension.
Neck
Okay.
extension.
So what are the
Yes,
things
sir.
you're going to look for the neck mobility?
For neck mobility, it is the neck flexion.
Okay, neck flexion, how do you check?
So I'll ask the patient to flex his neck so that his chin should touch the
Okay.
mandibular
If
sternum.
if he touches the chin, what does it mean?
The flexion is adequate, that is around 30 to 35 degrees.
Okay, more than 35 degrees
Yes,
for the
sir.
neck flexion. Then,
Then extension, sir.
okay,
Extension at that.
neck extension. How do you check the neck extension?
So with the mouth closed, the patient will be asked to completely extend till he can do so.
Okay, how do you measure the neck extension?
So this is by Delicat's test or direct
Okay.
assessment, indirect assessments are there.
Okay, what is Delicat's test?
In Delicat's test, the patient will be asked to look up the ceiling till he can maximally extend his neck. So the examiner's left index finger will be on the chin and the right index finger will be on the occipital protuberance.
Okay.
And if the left index finger is higher than the right index finger, it shows that the extension is adequate.
Okay, so that's one way of doing. Okay.
Yes.
There are two other tests for neck extension, right? First, what you do is make the patient in neutral position. Just draw a line like this, right? Then ask the patient to do maximal neck extension. So when the neck goes like this, when he does a neck extension, upper incisors will be at this level. So again, draw a tangential line. So find the angulation using goniometer. Okay, goniometer is an equipment used. If you have available, you can use that. So this angulation will tell you how good is your neck extension. So using goniometer, if it is more than 35 degrees, it is going to be grade 1. Grade 2 will be 21 to 34 degrees. Grade 3 will be 12 to 21 degrees. And grade 4 is going to be less than 12 degrees. So again, grade 3 and 4 are extremely difficult. 2 with moderate difficulty. 1 is going to be an easy head extension. Other thing is head extension degree plus head flexion degree. If it is more than 90 degrees, it is going to be an easy intubation. So these are the three different things when it comes to the neck mobility.
Yes, sir.
Got the point?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what are the things in the neck mobility? Last one.
The rotation, sir.
Neck rotation. Okay, then most important thing.
The temporal, the thigh.
Sternomental distance. Okay.
Sternomental distance,
Sternomental
yes.
distance, nothing but when the extension is good, sternomental distance is going to be very good, right? So
Yes,
what
sir.
is sternomental distance?
So
So did you
sternomental
check
distance,
the neck angles for this patient?
so extension flexion was good in this patient, sir.
Okay, extension is
There
more
were
than
no
35 degrees.
restriction and rotation
Okay,
was also
flexion is
full,
more
sir.
than 35 degrees. Let's assume that.
Yes, sir.
Right. Fine. And lastly, sternomental distance. Do you
It
check?
was 16.5 centimeter in this patient,
Okay,
sir.
16.5. So what is the threshold for sternomental distance?
12.5. More than that, it will be adequate for
Okay, more
the
than
neck extension.
12.5, it is going to be an easy neck extension and easy intubation.
Yes, sir.
Good. Fine. So if you have examined and mentioned the values of all these parameters, you will pass in your exam easily. Okay. So 50% of examination will be cleared when you have mentioned all these parameters properly. So how to remember this order? Remember the things you do in the scope, you will not forget this order. Okay. So first thing you see is for the mouth opening to put the scope. Then you're going to look for any prominent incisors. So for that, you need mouth opening measurement as well as the interincisor gap. Then after putting the scope, you're going to push the tongue. So the tongue compliance and tongue mobility. Last thing, if you want to put the tube, you need a good working space. For that, you need Malamberti scoring. Next thing is tongue has to be pushed into the mandibular space. So thyromental distance and hymental distance. Lastly, after pushing the tongue, you're going to lift the jaw to view the epiglottis. So for that, you need TMJ should be mobile properly. In order to take the TMJ mobility, you're going to look for upper lip bite test and jaw protrusion. And finally, neck extension and sternomental distance to align the oropharyngeal laryngeal axis. Is it clear?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, for measuring the sternometrial distance also, we need to full extension of the neck with the mouth closed and
Full extension, mouth completely closed.
Yes.
Because when you open the mouth, that is going to reduce the distance, isn't it? So full extension, start from the sternal notch to the mentis or pubis, mentis symphysis, and you measure the length from the sternal notch in full extension. Right. There are few other airway examination parameters. Okay. Length of the mandible. Okay. If we don't mention these things, it's not going to affect anything. So don't worry about it. So horizontal mandibular length. Right. If it is more than 9 centimeter, it is going to be an easy intubation. Then there is additional radiological assessment, sonographic assessment, CT, MRI assessment, nasal endoscopy assessment, flow volume loops. Right? Just remember the names alone. This will not be concentrated for you in examination much. Okay. Whereas those anatomical things which discussed early, those are all very, very vital. Okay. Good. Others, unmute and tell me any questions so far.
Sir, can you repeat Delicat's test?
Delicat's test, right? So draw a head here, right? Eyes here, and this is the incisor. Right. So one finger here and one finger in the inferior occipital prominence. Okay. Right. So one finger here and one finger. This is neutral position. Then ask the patient to extend the head. Right. Make him as much as neck extension as possible. So when he does a neck extension, the left index finger or the finger on the upper incisor will go up. The lower incisor or the occipital finger will be lying here. So see this level, right? When the incisor finger is higher than the occipital finger, it is going to be grade 1 or easy intubation. When the both fingers lie at the same level, despite an head extension, maximum head extension, it is going to be grade 2. When this is lesser, occipital is higher and the incisor is at lower level, that is going to be grade 3. Okay.
Sir, jaw protrusion grading.
Jaw protrusion, lower incisor coming forward beyond the upper incisor, grade 1. Both incisors at the same level, grade 2. Lower incisor is behind the upper incisor, that is going to be grade 3. Good. So these are all individual indices. Okay. These are all individual markers. So when you combine few individual indices and make them as a group indices, the chances of sensitivity and specificity is going to increase a bit. Okay. So can you tell me a few group indices for me?
So Wilson scoring.
Wilson.
And Benumos 11 parameter analysis.
Benumos 11 parameter analysis.
And rapid airway assessment test. So that 1, 2, 3 finger test.
Okay. Then there is Il-Ganzuri index. Arnis index.
Bellhouse.
Intubation difficulty scoring. IDS scoring. Arnis index. Then there is Sangvi index. So many scorings are there and the list keeps on extending. If at all they're going to ask you, they'll ask you only the Wilson scoring. Just tell me what are the parameters alone included in the Wilson scoring.
In Wilson scoring, it is weight in kilograms, head and neck movement.
Head and neck movements.
The jaw movement, that is the inter-incisor distance. The sliding of the mandible beyond the incisors, maxillary incisors.
Okay.
And receding mandible and buck teeth.
Okay. Receding mandible, jaw protrusion, buck tooth, head and neck movements, and weight.
Weight.
Okay. So less than 5, it is going to be easy intubation. 6 to 7 is moderate. 6 to 7 moderate. More than 8 to 10, it is going to be difficult, right? Remember this Wilson score alone, I think that is all sufficient when it comes to your examination part. Okay. Now let's discuss about the airway assessment. So can you tell me some of the predictors for difficult bag and mask ventilation?
So for difficult bag and mask ventilation, it goes by mnemonic bones, sir. Bearded patient, obese, edentulous,
Fine. So I hope you know that. Basically, there are three gradings. Okay, one is Lenny-Grant's test. Okay, Lenny-Grant's grading. Okay, which has got a mnemonic OPIS.
Yes, sir.
All right. Lenny-Grant's grading tells that O is for obesity, which is BMI
More than 30.
more than 26. Okay, more than 26 kilogram per meter square. B is for beard.
Beard.
E is for
Elderly.
elderly. Okay, elderly, which is age more than
55.
55. Right. S is for snoring.
OS.
And E is for edentalus.
Edentalus.
Okay, this is Lenny-Grant's difficult. Lenny-Grant's difficult mask ventilation predictors. Okay. Then there is another grading called Keter Falls. Keter Falls grading is again same. It is OBESJM. Okay. So in this, the BMI is kept as more than 30. Okay. And B is again for beard. E is for age more than 57, elderly patient. S is for snoring, the same. J is for jaw protrusion. And M is for Malambaty. So Keter Fall included jaw protrusion and Malambaty grading. Okay. So Malambaty grade 3 and 4 are found to be markers for difficult mask ventilation, because when you don't have an adequate mouth opening, what happens, the tongue space is very narrow. The tongue is going to get pushed down. So that is going to affect your mask ventilation. And lastly, the other important grading which is used clinically nowadays is Murphy's and Walls. This is currently used in clinical grading, which has got the mnemonic which is said, bones.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you know Murphy's and Walls grading, that is all enough. All right. So it is not bones actually, it is moans.
M-O-A-N-S.
M-O-A-N-S. What is MO? M stands for mask seal.
Malampat.
Mask seal. Okay. Any factors which is going to affect the sealing of the mask, like presence of beard, any facial dysmorphity, any teeth injury, any abnormal facial symmetric features, any bleeding inside the tongue, or any edental patient, right? Anything which is going to affect the mask seal will have a difficult mask ventilation. Then O stands for obesity. As I said, BMI more than 27. And A is for advanced stage, age more than 55. And N is for no tooth, edentulous, no tooth. And S is for stiff lungs. Okay, like snoring, obstructive sleep apnea, airway disease, right, or low complaint lung conditions. So these are all can cause difficult mask ventilation. Moans is the most recent overall universally followed difficult mask ventilation criteria. Even if you say bones is nothing wrong, but make sure you mention majority of these features.
Sorry,
N is for no tooth. M is for mask seal. O is for obesity, which means a BMI more than 27. And A is for age more than 55. N is for no tooth. S is for any stiff conditions, obstructive sleep apnea, snoring, airway disease, bronchospasm, neck radiation, ARDS, right? So many conditions which causes lung compliance, which is going to be very poor. That is again going to produce difficult mask ventilation. Okay. So these are the three gradings available for difficult mask ventilation. You can tell any of these features in the exam. Okay. Any questions here so far? Is that clear, Meera?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let's go on that this patient, what are the problems this patient is having? Is this patient having any other feature of difficult mask ventilation?
No, sir. Other than the mouth opening, no other
Okay.
difficulties.
Okay.
Sir.
Apart
As
from
by
the
parameters
Malambaty
as-
grading, this patient is not having any features of difficult mask ventilation. So the mask ventilation is going to be easy in this patient.
Yes, sir.
Again, I'm telling these all predictors are only clinical examination. Despite prediction, there is still possible that this patient is likely to have a difficult mask ventilation also. because of the poor sensitivity of all this test. So as per our clinical examination, mask ventilation is okay for this patient. Okay.
Yes.
Good. What is the incidence of difficult mask ventilation in general population? It is going to be 0.08 to 0.15 percentage. Okay. So this is the incidence of difficult mask ventilation in general population. Good. And okay, now let's assess the patient features predicting for difficult LMA insertion. Okay. So
Yes.
there are definitions for difficult mask ventilation. There are definitions for difficult LMA. There are definitions for difficult intubation. Just blindly read this definition and remember and mug it up in your mind. Okay. Like intubation,
Yes.
more than 10 minutes, more than 3 attempts. So many definitions are
Less
there.
than,
You just
yes.
remember those ASA graded definitions for each different things. Okay. Right. And I don't want to waste time in discussing that. So leave those things. So what are the factors predicting difficult laryngeal mask insertion?
It is restricted rods by mnemonic
Okay,
rods.
again, it is Murphy's and Wallace criteria. Okay, so
Yes.
Murphy's and Wallace have given rods. So what is rods?
Restricted mouth opening,
Okay,
obstruction of the upper airway.
any obstruction like tumors, epiglottitis, any infection, any foreign body obstructing the upper airway, again, LMA is going to be useless.
Then disrupted upper airway like trauma, burns.
Okay, any mandibular fractures, any oral bleeding inside, any upper airway edema secondary to hematomas. So all is going to produce distortion in the airway. So that is again going to produce a difficult laryngeal mask insertion. And lastly,
And stiff lung, poor lung compliance.
Poor lung compliance. Okay, what happens there? Why the LMA is useless in poor lung compliance?
Because the inflation pressure, will not be able to ventilate in case if the patient's compliance is very poor. So
okay, so what
the
happens
pressure required will be high.
Okay, what happens when you put LMA in a poorly compliant lung?
Aspiration, there will be risk of
yeah, because
it
when
will
the lung
insufflate
is
the gastric.
when the lung compliance is very poor, what happens? The air is not going to go inside. So whatever you're going to inflate is going to go into the stomach now. So that will produce gastric inflation and aspiration, right?
Yes.
So let's assume that you've inserted an LMA. When do you tell that LMA is in proper position? What are the criteria to tell that LMA is in proper position?
If, one is by observing the like externally for the change in shape, sir.
No.
The chest movement.
Okay, chest movement are the most important vital criteria to tell that LMA is in proper place. Okay, no worries. Just remember these things. When the patient, you are able to generate a tidal volume of 7 ml per kg with a saline pressure of 15 to 20 centimeters of water, right? This indicates that LMA is in proper position. Say, for example, if there is a 60 kg male and if you're delivering around 420 ml, right? And the airway pressure, it's not actually airway pressure because it is not recorded in the airway. It is actually the ceiling pressure. The ceiling pressure is reading 16 centimeters of pressure in the ventilator. This means the LMA is properly placed. Okay. So this is the criteria to tell that LMA is in proper position, right? Chest rise, anything will happen even if it is improper position, right? So the best clinical criteria is giving a tidal volume of 7 ml per kg with a ceiling pressure recorded is only 15 to 20 in this range. That indicates the LMA is in proper position. Excellent, lovely. So these are the predictors for difficult laryngeal mask, supraglottic airway insertion, and the overall incidence in the general population is 0.16 to 0.9%. Okay? Good. Now you have to assess all this criteria because you don't know whether this patient is going to be a difficult mask ventilation, it's going to be a difficult LMA insertion, or it's going to be a combination of all the three. Yes, boss.
So you just mentioned the ceiling pressure. It is the pressure with which we inflate the LMA?
No. So if you are inserting LMA now, it is going to sit in front of the larynx here, right? So in intubation, when the patient is tubed, what happens, it records the pressure inside the trachea. Am I right or not?
Yes.
Okay. the pressure recorded in an endotracheal tube is actually the airway pressure. Whereas the pressure recorded in LMA, though we commonly call them as an airway pressure, it is actually properly called as the ceiling pressure. The ceiling between the laryngeal mask and the laryngeal inlet. Okay, this is where the pressure is recorded. This is not the actual airway pressure inside the lung. Okay, so for example, when the LMA is twisted, okay, if half of the LMA is obstructing the laryngeal inlet, what happens to the ceiling pressure? It will be more than 20. Though we call them regularly as an airway pressure, it is not actually airway pressure. The proper term is the ceiling pressure. Okay.
So what is this? In simple terms, what is the airway pressure? Airway pressure is the pressure generated in the lung.
Okay. For example, you're right. So you have intubated, right? Right. So airway pressure, the pressure sensors are reading the airway pressure at this point. Okay. So you are inflating the lungs, and the air is coming back. So the expired gases is going to come and hit back and the tracheal end or the endotracheal tube ending. So that flow rate and hitting at what pressure, that is recorded as an airway pressure. For example, if there is a pneumothorax, right? What happens if there is a pneumothorax? There is no air entry, not going into the lungs. Whereas the pleural pressure is positive. It is coming on squeezing. It is coming on pressing on the lung. So what will be the pressure reflected on the trachea now? Will it be very high? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah. So when there is an air collect pockets injury, it is going to compress the lung. When it is going to compress the lung, it is going to compress the tracheal tissues. So that naturally going to increase the flow rate back, or the air is going to face a huge restriction to come in. So this incoming gas and the outgoing gas are fighting each other. That naturally increases the airway pressure. So the pressure recorded in the airway when there is no gas flow. That is what we call it as an airway pressure at neutral point. Do you understand now?
Yes.
The guy you asked me. Is that clear?
Yes, sir, I did ask it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, fine. So in LMA, though we call them as an airway pressure, it is actually a ceiling pressure. Okay. So 7 ml per kg of tidal volume with a ceiling pressure of 15 to 20. That is a perfectly placed LMA. Okay. Good. Now let's go into predictors of difficult intubation. Meera, back to you.
Yes,
Again.
sir. Yes,
What are the predictors of difficult intubation? This is where
all the
you
things
get the
together, sir.
Lyman.
Yes, sir.
Have you heard this? Lyman.
Yes, sir. Look externally.
Okay. So this is what the grading for difficult intubation with direct laryngoscopy, right? So
Yes, sir.
look externally. What do you look for externally? Mandible.
For
Look for the mandible,
facial
dentition, short neck, facial dysmorphism, any thoracic brace, any cervical
Phallic.
spine collar, large tongue. These are the things you're going to look externally. So all these things has to come in your general examination or in your airway examination. Okay. Mandible, dentition, short neck, facial dysmorphism, any halothoracic brace, cervical spine collar, or large tongue. These are the things you're going to look externally. And what is E?
Examination 332 rule, sir.
332. Evaluate 332. What is this 332?
3 is for the oral mouth opening, sir.
3 is for mouth
It should
opening.
accommodate 3 fingers.
Okay.
The
Another
other
is,
3 for the mandibular space between the
okay.
mental and the
Thyromental distance,
hyoid.
3 fingers. And the last
And
2?
between the thyroid cartilage and the mandible, 2 finger space, sir.
Right. So this is the 332 evaluation. Okay. What is YUM?
Mallampatti grading, sir.
That is Mallampatti grading. So grade 3 and
3
grade 4?
and 4 will be
going to be
difficult.
difficult intubation. And what is O?
O for obstruction, sir. Obstruction of the airway.
Okay. Obstruction of the, how do you assess the obstruction of airway clinically? When do you suspect the airway is obstructed?
If the stridor patient is in.
Okay. If the patient is having stridor, that indicates the airway diameter is going to be less than 4 millimeter. Okay.
Yes.
If the patient is having a stridor in a quiet sitting stage, that happens only in an adult patient when the airway diameter is dropping less than 4 millimeter. Okay. And what is N?
Neck mobility, sir.
Neck mobility.
Extension, flexion, and rotation, sir.
So these are the gradings you could look for difficult intubation with direct laryngoscopy. Okay. So Lehman,
Yes,
look
sir.
externally, evaluate 332, M for malleability, O for obstruction, and N for neck mobility. Good.
Yes, sir.
And lastly, after putting laryngoscope, how do you assess the difficulty in intubation?
That is by the Cormack-Lehane grading, sir.
Okay.
Modified Cook's modification of C.
Cormack-Lehane is grading. Okay. I hope you know grade
Yes,
1,
sir.
grade 2.
2A
2 has
and B,
got 2A and B, 3 has
3A
got
and B,
B, and 4.
and 4.
What is 1?
One is the whole
Complete view of glottis and epiglottis. Fine.
and epiglottis, sir.
Yeah. What is 2A and what is 2B?
The posterior commissures will be visible, sir.
Okay. Posterior commissure is seen in 2A. And what is 2B?
2B, the part
Only
of the
arytenoids.
arytenoid,
Only the
yes, sir.
arytenoids are visible. That becomes 2B.
B.
And what is 3A?
The epiglottis, only the epiglottis will be visualized, and it is liftable by using
Epiglottis
bougie
only
or
seen and it is liftable.
liftable.
This is not liftable.
Liftable. And 4, only the base of the tongue will be seen.
Okay.
No glottic
No glottic structures.
structures.
Okay. Apart from Cormack-Lehane, any other grading?
Percentage of glottic opening grading.
Pogo scoring. Okay. Percentage of glottic opening. Right. So if it is less than 33% glottic opening, it's going to be a
Lower
difficult.
third of vocal cord.
Okay. It's
Yes.
going to be a difficult intubation. Lovely. Excellent. So any questions in discussion so far? Can we go on to anesthesia management of this patient?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, if any patients with dentures during assessment of Mallampati, we have to remove the dentures or mention or
Okay. Well, I mean, why do you ask this question? What significance you think it is going to happen in removing and not removing?
is there any variation in if there is
Right.
putting
A patient is having a normal tooth. That patient is
Oh.
having an artificial denture, right?
okay,
Both are tooth actually. So does it
Okay.
going to make any difference? Definitely no.
okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Right. Any questions? If everyone are clear, we can move on to anesthesia management. Someone has asked me in the chat, what is 3321? That one is nothing but one finger insertion in front of the tragus to look for the jaw
TMJ.
movement. Okay, TMJ movement. Okay, that is number 1. Good. So everything is done. Airway assessment is done. So from your airway examination, what is your prediction? This
In this
patient, does
patient,
it have a difficult mask ventilation? From the clinical predictors.
Yes, sir. There were no difficulty in any
Okay, so
specific-
mask ventilation is going to be easy for this patient
Yes,
as
sir.
per our clinical prediction. What
Yes.
about the LMA?
LMA also intense is a distance of 3.5 millimeters she had, sir.
So it is going to be a difficult, I mean, intensor gap is 3.5. So you can
Yes.
insert an LMA.
Yes, sir.
So LMA insertion is safe because you got more than 3.5 because for the lowermost threshold is 2.5 for LMA insertion.
Yes,
Right,
sir.
good. So insertion of LMA is going to be safe. What about the intubation? Based upon the Lehman's grading, what do you feel?
Yes, sir. Neck movements and externally there were no abnormalities, sir.
Okay.
And obstruction, no
Mallampati.
features of any airway
Mallampati
obstruction. And
is 3 and 4. Mallampati is 4.
Mallampati was grade 4, sir. In this
Okay.
patient.
And
Only
any-
except Mallampati, others were normal, sir.
Okay. Then jaw movement. This you forgot. So when you're coming for TMJ ankylosing, you have to mention the jaw movement and upper lip bite test.
Yes, sir.
So
Upper lip was
jaw
grade 2, sir.
Upper lip bite test and jaw movement are in grade 2. So that
2.
indicates it's
Yes,
going to
sir.
be a difficult intubation
Yes, sir.
and Mallampati 4. So these
Yes,
are the
sir.
factors which is favoring that this patient is likely to have a difficult intubation.
airway.
Neck movements are normal.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So with these things in the background, we're gonna anesthetize this patient. So before anesthetizing, what are the things you do?
In case of this patient in temporomandibular joint ankylosing, we should see any other comorbid illness, sir.
Okay,
Since
so which
this
you asked in the history, right?
Yes, sir. OS says
Okay, no comorbidities, nothing. Fine.
no. Yes, sir.
Then
No anemia.
Anyway, so history and examination are good. Then what are you going to do?
Investigate the
Just
patient.
tell me what you do in your OT. That's what we need. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So after taking the history and I'll go with the investigation of the patient, sir.
Okay, good, lovely. How
So
do you investigate this patient?
So specific and non-specific investigation, sir.
Mm.
So the non-specific investigation being the complete blood count, hemogram.
Okay, blood
hemoglobin,
investigations
platelet,
you
and-
do. That is first surgery. Okay, complete hemogram. Then you're gonna do renal function test. Then you're gonna do
Yes,
electrolytes.
sir.
Okay.
Electrolytes,
Right, and
Yes,
blood
sir.
sugar,
blood protein.
coagulation profile. Good. Then, what are the specific tests? Any specific test for this patient you need?
In case of X-rays or
Okay, ideally
if it
in
is
this
taken
patient
along with the
doesn't need
neck,
anything. Okay,
FP or
this
laser.
patient doesn't need anything because it is a clearly straightforward, non-congenital and acquired problem. Okay, so any specific test is not going to help you much because ultrasound is not indicated in this patient. And then one other thing we forgot to mention, which we really forgot to mention in the airway examination, is the neck circumference. Okay, neck circumference is a novel thing, new thing which has been incorporated in the airway examination. Don't forget to mention this. Neck circumference more than 40 centimeter, it is going to be
40.
a difficult mask ventilation. Okay, so we forgot to mention that thing. So specific, depending upon the clinical situation, like for example, if you are having a growth in the epiglottis, if the tongue is restricted, you can do nasal endoscopic examination or you can do an indirect laryngoscopic examination. If the patient is having hoarseness of voice, you can go for flow volume loop study. If the patient is having dysphagia, you can do an CT and MRI to look for the airway diameter. So specific investigations depend upon your clinical scenario. Of course, this patient is a straightforward TMJ ankylosis. You don't need all those things. Okay. Good. Now let's anesthetize this patient. So before anesthetizing, what is your plan? So most important thing in airway cases, they will ask you what is your plan in the airway management? How do you prepare your OT in airway management? How do you going to get ready for complications which you're going to face? These are the three ways they assess how safe anesthetist you are. First question, how do you prepare this patient? I mean, what is your plan first?
So my plan for this patient is, since she's a difficult airway, my plan is to do a awake fiber optic nasotracheal intubation. sir.
Awake fiber optic nasal intubation.
Nasotracheal.
Okay. What are the options available in this patient to intubate apart from awake fiber optic intubation?
One is blind nasal intubation,
One is blind
Ret-
nasal, one
retrograde
very good.
intubation,
Blind nasal, retrograde.
or intubating laryngeal mask airway,
ILMA can be inserted. Very good.
light band,
Light wand can be tried. All the C needs less than 2 centimeter, right? So light wand.
and
Of course,
at last
awake.
surgical
At last, surgical front of neck access.
access.
Right. So these are the different options available. We can try. Of course, the best option to go in is going for an awake nasal fiber optic intubation. Right. Okay. How do you prepare and how do you plan and how do you proceed?
So first, after planning my anesthesia, I'll counsel the patient, sir. So
Okay.
psychological preparation of the patient is a very important aspect in case of
Excellent.
difficult airway.
So that's the most important thing. Psychological preparedness of the patient is very important for proper cooperation. Good. Then,
Then pharmacological preparation.
okay, pharmacological preparation. How do you prepare pharmacological preparation?
So pharmacological preparation, that is pre-medicating the patient with anti-xylogop,
Anti-Sialagogue. What anti-Sialagogue you give?
glycopyrrolate 0.2 mg IV.
Glycopyrrolate. Okay. You're gonna give 0.2 to 0.4 milligram.
mg
How
IV.
soon does
20
it?
minutes prior to shifting.
Okay, you have to give
20 to 30 minutes.
30 minutes before the starting the
Shifting.
fiber optic intubation. Okay, that's more important. 20 to 30 minutes before. Fine. Next.
Next, nebulization with 4% lignocaine. sir.
So, okay, what are the important airway preparation you do? One is you said pharmacology giving anti-Sialagogue.
Yes,
What
sir.
is the airway
Starting
preparation?
from the nasal to the lower airway. Sir.
Okay, how do you prepare the nose?
So nose will be prepared with vasoconstrictors and local anesthetic agents, sir.
Okay, what vasoconstrictors you use?
Xylometazoline 0.05%. Sir.
Okay, so 0.05% xylometazoline.
Metazoline.
So how soon you should give?
20 minutes.
You should give 2 doses, right, at 15 to 20 minutes interval.
Okay, sir.
Okay, 2 doses at 15 to 20 minutes interval, vasoconstrictor, nasal drops, mainly to prevent the nasal bleeding. Fine. Then,
And lignocaine jelly, so 2% can be applied.
okay, so cotton pledgets
Soaked in
lignocaine,
lignocaine jelly, 2%, sir.
2%. Right. So, what is the maximum dose of lignocaine you use for airway anesthesia?
Maximum up to 9 mg per kg, sir.
Yes, very good. You can use up to 9 mg per kg. Conventional textbook says which with adrenaline it is going to be 7, whereas for airway it is accepted up to 9 milligram per kg of lidocaine can be used. So what are the nerves you have to block in the nose?
Nose, it is a nasopalatine nerve, sir.
Nasopalatine nerves,
Anterior
ethmoidal nerves, anterior ethmoidal nerves, nasopalatine nerves. Okay.
Sphenopalatine.
Okay, sphenopalatine nerve. So these are the nerves which are coming from the trigeminal, okay, maxillary part of trigeminal nerve. So these are nerves going to block in the nose. So
Yes,
for
sir.
the nasal blockage, you're going to use vasoconstrictors, and then you're going to put the lidocaine soaked cotton pledges. Most important things, you have to reach until the superior concha or the superior turbinate. You have to reach that space and you have to keep the cotton pledges over there. So you have to wait for 10 to 15 minutes after placing that cotton pledget. Right. So nose is prepared. Then what is next?
Sir. Then the nebulization, sir.
Okay, nebulization. Why nebulization is done?
So, so that the lower airways can also be anesthetized.
Okay, lower airway or anything else, fine. So before nebulization, how do you prepare the oral part? Nose is prepared now.
Yes, sir.
How do you prepare the oropharynx?
Oropharynx, glossopharyngeal coming to the tongue, sir.
Is there anything else you do for the preparation of oropharynx?
Superior laryngeal nerve and the...
No. Oropharynx. You're still in the oropharynx.
In the anterior tonsillar pillar, we can inject.
Before that, okay, you're gonna give 2% lignocaine gargling, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ask the patient to take 10 to 15 ml, right?
Okay.
Hold, the most important thing is ask the patient to hold inside the throat, not to swallow him for at least 1 to 2 minutes, right?
Okay.
So 1 to 2 minutes, 10 to 15 ml, 2% lidocaine, which is an oral formation, is available, and ask him to keep in the oropharynx to block the posterior pharyngeal wall, nerve terminals of the glossopharyngeal nerve. Okay, or you can block the glossopharyngeal nerve differently, which you tell like at the floor of the anterior pillars or the anterior fascial pillars. You can give the cotton pleasure lidocaine. You can keep the cotton soaked in the lidocaine. You can keep the cotton pleasure at the floor of the tonsillar fossa. So that is where you can block the glossopharyngeal nerve. So apart from the pharyngeal supply, it also supplies the posterior 1/3 of the tongue and upper surface of the epiglottis, right? Right. So you have prepared the oral mucosa, you have prepared the nasal mucosa. Then what is next?
Yes, sir. Then the superior laryngeal nerve, sir.
Okay, superior laryngeal nerve. How do you block the superior laryngeal nerve?
So
Okay, what is the
external
nerve? What is
approach,
the nerve supply of larynx before that?
So it is by the superior and all the muscles of the larynx are supplied by the rectal laryngeal nerve, except the cricothyroid, which is supplied by the external branch of superior laryngeal nerve. So.
Okay, sensory
And
supply.
sensory supply above the vocal cord, it is by the internal branch of the superior laryngeal nerve, and below the vocal cord, it will by the recurrent laryngeal nerve. So.
Okay, so you're going to block the superior
laryngeal nerve.
laryngeal nerve. What is the anatomical mark point?
So the superior laryngeal nerve will pierce the thyrohyoid membrane, sir.
Okay. Is it thyroid notch or anything else?
The hyoid bone should be identified.
Going to
sir.
be the greater cornu, okay?
Cornu of the
You have to
hyoid.
identify the greater cornu of hyoid bone. And how do you do the superior laryngeal nerve block?
So once the needle hits the greater cornu of hyoid bone, we should walk over below that. And after piercing the membrane, we'll give 1%.
What is the membrane which is pierced there?
Thyrohyoid membrane, sir.
It's going to be the thyroid membrane. So first thing is make the patient neutral, all right? So that's the first important thing. Then
Neck
you
in
have
extended
to stand on the side which you're going to block, okay? Then push the trachea or the larynx from the other side. So you stand on the side to be blocked. So with other hand, you push the larynx towards you. And that way, the one side of the hyoid bone gets more prominent. So palpate the greater corner of hyoid bone. So go and hit the greater corner of hyoid bone first, okay? Then withdraw it, just walk down below the greater corner of hyoid bone and pierce the thyrohyoid membrane. So that is how you block the superior laryngeal nerve. So I can give 2 to 3 ml of 2% lidocaine.
Yes,
Good.
sir.
So you're blocking both the external and the internal branch such a way that both the sensory supply as well as the motor supply, both the superior, I mean external and internal branch of the superior laryngeal nerve is blocked. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Right. Next, what is the next thing?
It's the recurrent laryngeal nerve, sir.
Okay. What is recurrent laryngeal nerve block? How do you block now?
So patient will be lying supine position with neck in completely extended position.
Okay.
So after identifying the cricothyroid membrane, sir.
Okay. Identify the cricothyroid
Cricothyroid.
membrane. Why cricothyroid membrane is chosen? Because it is relatively avascular. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So that is why cricothyroid membrane is chosen for recurrent laryngeal nerve. Okay, relatively avascular. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Good. So you identified the cricothyroid membrane. What is then?
After introducing the needle and the syringe, we should keep on aspirating at a particular point when we feel the giveaway, and when the air is aspirated, we are inside the trachea, sir.
Okay, so with the needle inserted, you're gonna give the local anesthetic.
Rapidly, we should give and pull it off, and the patient will get a bout of
Okay,
cough.
most
so that-
important thing, if you keep with the needle in situ and if you give the drug, what happens? The patient will cough. So if the
Yes,
patient
broken
cough, what
needle.
complication can happen? This needle can go and pierce the posterior wall of trachea, which is not cartilaginous, which is membranous. Okay,
Emphysema, sir.
so how do you avoid that then?
Fine needle.
How do you avoid the piercing of the posterior tracheal membrane? So
Needle length should be short.
if needle length is short, you cannot reach the space, right? So most important thing, you should not use directly, you should use catheter over needle, right? For example, you can use 22 gauge needle over catheter cannula, right? So once you have entered the trachea, take the needle out, push the catheter inside.
Okay, sir.
Okay, got the point? So
Yes, sir.
take the needle outside, push the plastic sheath inside, re-aspirate air again, confirm, and then inject. Okay, so this is the most safest way. If at all, if you're not doing that, if you want to inject with the needle has to face caudally facing towards the carina, okay, at an angulated degrees. So that is how you can't, even the patient coughs, the chances of piercing the posterior tracheal wall is very less, okay. But the safest thing is put the catheter or needle like a cannula. Once you aspirate air, take the needle out, push the plastic sheath inside, re-aspirate and re-inject. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so during injection, what do you think happens to the patient? They cough. So this cough is the one which is going to spread the local anesthetic above and below the vocal cords. Okay, right, good. So instead of doing all this nerve blocks, say any other way of doing a
Pray
fiber optic.
as you
Okay,
go
so that is another
method.
novel technique. People nowadays not at all following this nerve block, right?
Yes.
So after preparing the nasal mucosa and oropharynx, you can blindly insert the fiber optic cable. Once you see the glottis, you can push the local anesthetic through that. Patient will cough eventually. So wait for 2 to 3 minutes,
2 minutes,
and then
yes.
attempt intubation. So this is spray as you go
As you
technique,
go technique.
SAGO technique. Okay,
Yes.
good, excellent. Right. Okay. Now you're going to do an awake fiber optic intubation. How will you do? How will you anesthetize this patient? So you're given anti-sialagogue. You prepared the block, airway block. Everything has been done. Patient has been prepared. Now start anesthetizing this patient.
So after attaching the monitors and after recording the baseline.
Attach the monitors, baseline vitals, IV
So
cannula
before that,
secured.
preparation of the theta and difficult airway card.
Difficult airway card. Very, very important. Difficult
Suction.
airway card. What are the things you keep in the difficult airway cart?
So above the cart, there'll be fiber optic bronchoscope. On
Okay.
the sides of the cart, there'll be airway exchange catheter and the
So
bougies.
scopes, different size scopes, blades, right? Then
And
airways.
first, airways,
Okay, LMS.
airway
Suction.
adjuncts,
Airway adjunct, suction.
and
Properly.
surgical
Okay, and surgical
needle and
airway
scalpel
set.
of 10.
Okay.
10 size.
Good. Then.
So after preparing the theater, now after attaching monitors and recording the baseline vitals, I'll explain the patient once again regarding the procedure.
Okay.
I'll pre-medicate the patient with midazolam 1 mg.
Okay, pre-medication, right? So this is essential. So you just give midazolam 1 to 2 milligram per 1 to 2 milligram. Then you can
And
give a small dose of opioids.
Fentanyl 1
Like
mg per
fentanyl,
kg.
1 mic per kg, 50 mics of fentanyl can be given, assuming it is a 50 kg, right? So you've calmed down the patient. So what are the important things you do in your fiber optic intubation? Which hand should hold the fiber optic handle? Which hand should hold the fiber optic cable tip?
So the left hand will be holding the fiber optic handle, sir, and the
Okay.
adjusting.
So the most important thing, you have to stand in a footstool at the head end of the patient, or you can intubate the patient from front. Okay. The conventional way is you go to the head end of the patient, put a footstool, you stand in a stool. Most important thing before inserting, make sure the fiber optic tube is completely in a straight line. Okay. So the left hand should hold the handle. The right hand should rest on the face of the patient. You have to rest the hand on the right hand on the face of the patient so that you make the alignment very straight. Okay. With the right hand, you're going to guide the fiber optic cable through the nose. And once it reaches the oral cavity, you're going to use the lever to see the epiglottic opening.
Epiglottis.
Okay, fine. So once you have seen the epiglottis, you're going to put the tube inside. The technician is going to railroad
Railroad
the
the
tube into the trachea. Okay, so after intubation, what are the important things you have to do?
So after intubation, after confirming the position.
Right. How do you confirm the position?
So with the fiber optic bronchoscope, the tube should be 2 to 3 rings above the carinal
Yes,
angle.
so tube should be in line with the carina, which should be around 2 to 3 centimeters on top of it. That's the first way and the best way of confirming. Second thing, look the ETCO2. Third thing, if the patient is spontaneous, look in the fogging. Last thing, chest rise and
Chest
auscultation.
movement. Yes.
Okay, so this is how you tube the patient and you secure the tube. So preferably flexometallic tube has to be used for it in case if needed for post-op ventilation. You
Airway
have to
exchange.
airway exchange catheter can be used and you can change the PVC
Normal
tubes later
PVC
on.
tubes.
Good. Anything else in the airway management? Okay. Now let's assume that you have anesthetized the patient. You have given after giving midazolam and fentanyl, you started seeing patient is apneic and saturation is dropping to 95%. How do you manage now?
So I'll try ventilating the patient, sir.
Okay, you're gonna put bag and
Put
mask.
Oral airway or
Okay.
nasal airway.
You're gonna try bag and mask ventilation.
Mask ventilation.
Okay.
And I'll see whether it is improving. The saturation is improving.
Okay, fine. Assuming that saturation is bag and mask ventilation is poor, patient saturation has dropped to 90%. What do you do next?
So next I'll be trying supraglottic airway devices, sir.
Before that, you have to adjust the position, right? You have to do manipulations, okay? Check the proper pillow, check the position of the patient, use 2 hands, use jaw thrust, use all the airway adjuncts and maneuvers, and try your best possible effort to get the bag and mask ventilation. Because even if you don't insert LMA, even if you don't intubate, we can save the patient provided you're able to ventilate the patient, okay?
Yes.
So try your maximum possible efforts to ventilate him properly, right? So ventilation is inadequate after despite optimal positioning. What do you do next?
I will supraglottic.
Okay, you're gonna insert supraglottic airway.
Airway
This
device.
patient is having a mouth opening of
3.5.
so naturally you can insert a supraglottic airway device. So you have inserted device, it is failing. What do you do next? First attempt failed.
I'll try assuming face mask ventilation, sir.
Okay, so remove it, again try to oxygenate the patient. Oxygenation is a key factor in all steps of difficult airway, right? So you're oxygenating. Now it has come up to 94%. What is next?
In case I can give muscle relaxant and I can try.
Okay, you can try muscle relaxant. When the bag and mask ventilation is failed with sedation alone, you have to make the patient deep. Okay, that is the next stage. So put muscle relaxant and you mask ventilate. Okay, after giving muscle relaxant, you see that there is some 100 to 150 ml tidal volume entering. What do you do then?
I'll try intubating the patient. Sir.
No, again put LMA as the second attempt. Okay, now the muscles are relaxed. Okay,
Yes, sir.
so put LMA because saturation is still not good, right? So put the LMA in the second attempt, right? So let's assume you put second attempt again. You are taking up, saturation not improving, and there is no chest rise. What do you do next?
Again, I'll assume ventilation, face mask
Okay,
ventilation.
now
sir.
face mask ventilation is resumed. After relaxing, good relaxation, face mask ventilation is completely failed.
And if it is a can't intubate, can't oxygenate situation.
Okay, now you're not able to intubate at all because there is no proper preparation. Bag and mask ventilation itself is failing now. What do you do next?
And it's a can't ventilate situation as well,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, so what is the next thing in a plan?
So there'll be a surgical access, emergency.
Okay, so emergency
front of
neck access. So what is the front of neck access
So
you will try?
surgical cricothyrotomy.
Surgical cricothyrotomy, right? That's it. Good guys. So in airway case, they will focus you on how you're examining the airway, and the next primary focus will be on how do you perform awake fiber optic intubation, and last thing, how is your anatomical knowledge in the larynx. These are the three things which will be primarily focused in an airway case. Very good, Dr. Meera. Any questions so far?
Sir, after SGS first attempt, what to do?
Sorry?
After supraelectric airway first attempt, again we have to do face mask ventilation, sir.
No, ideally, as per difficult airway criteria, you can do 4 intubations, right? Most important thing, each intubation, you have to modify something. Say, for example, if you're putting a conventional scope, you're not seeing anything. You mask ventilate, improve the saturation. Again, don't put the same scope. Either you change the blade or you change the patient position, optimize something. There should be some change in your next intubation, right? Second attempt. If it is failed, go for video laryngoscopy. Okay. Try to go for other modules of intubation. If the third attempt is failing, the fourth attempt has to be done only in the presence of senior most person. You should not do it again. If there is no one available, go to plan B. So this is what the difficult airway is saying. In plan B, you have been allowed to put LMA insertion twice. Okay. All the time during intubation, all the time during LMA insertion, make sure the patient's oxygenation is good. At any point, if you feel that patient is desaturating, throw off this attempt, throw off this LMA, resume to mask ventilation as soon as possible. The key factor is not intubation, is ventilation and oxygenation. Okay. So insert LMA. Twice it is failing, resume again to face mask. Okay. If possible to cancel the surgery, you cancel at that point. If you have to do, go for front of neck access.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
How do you manage in case of a pediatric difficult airway, uncooperative child?
Pediatric difficult airway. Right. Pediatric difficult airway, again, as we saw in the cleft lip cleft palate case, it depends upon what clinical situation you're facing. Okay. Okay, so it depends upon what clinical situation you're facing, right? So there are two school of thoughts. One, they say that you have to get an IV access and then only you have to try intubation. The other group of people who are telling that in pediatric patient, you go for inhalation induction, make the baby calm a bit, and then you get an IV access and then try for intubation. This comes to difficult airway in the kids. Whereas the management, the criteria, mask ventilation, intubation, everything is more or less same as well as in the pediatric patient. Again, in pediatrics, the stress is going to be more importance on mask ventilation and oxygenation of the patient.
Sir, what are changes in COVID suspect patient and
COVID positive person.
I'm out of COVID, but I don't know what is the current convention guidelines in COVID. Since I'm not treating COVID patients, I might not be the right person to tell this. Okay. But anyway, I'll refer and tell you during your OSCE stations.
Okay, sir.
In case of difficult to bag and mask ventilation, one of our targets to give muscle relaxant to make the
Yeah.
bag and
So
mask
there
ventilation.
are four. The Hans, there is called a classification called Hans classification. Okay. So this Hans grading tells that first thing you give propofol and try to ventilate the patient. Okay. If it is easy, fine. That is grade 1. The second grade will be if you're not able to ventilate, then try to add an oral airway adjuncts like oral airway or nasal airway, and then try and ventilate. If it is failing, move on to grade 3. That becomes putting a muscle relaxant. Okay. And then 2% ventilation. One person holding the mask with 2 hands, other person bagging. So that is grade 3. And last is grade 4 is very poor, which is impossible even after all these 3 techniques. So earlier what they thought is when you find difficulty in mask ventilation, you reverse the patient. Whereas the current school of thought is make the patient as deep as possible, because it is the inadequate plane and inadequate muscle relaxation which is the primary reason for difficult mask ventilation. Okay. So after the availability of Sugammadex, people are boldly giving rocuronium in any institute so that you can reverse a patient if at all you are facing a dreadful situation.
Sir,
But in resource limited settings like ours, we don't have Sugammadex here.
Yeah, in that case,
Could
you have to
use
go
muscle
only with
relaxant?
choline. In that case, you can go ahead with choline.
Choline was apnea time for around 8 minutes. Yes, sir?
Yeah, so what a thing, so in order to make the apnea time good, right? So I forgot to mention this, time for remaining. So you have to pre-oxygenate the patient for how many minutes, Dr. Meera? How long you pre-oxygenate the patient? She's not here.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, I was muted.
Okay, fine. So how long you pre-oxygenate the patient?
5 minutes, sir.
Ideally, it should be 3 to 4 minutes
3 to 5
or
minutes.
8 vital capacity breath. So what is your end point in pre-oxygenation? When do you say
The
that
end-
the patient is adequately pre-oxygenated?
The end tidal O2
Yeah, the end tidal oxygen concentration
90%.
should reach 90%. Okay. So that is your end point, most important thing, not about the time or the vital capacity breaths. Whatever the technique you choose, the end tidal oxygen concentration should be 90%. So that case, that can give you an apnea time for 5 to 8 minutes, right? So that is enough for this choline to come out, for the patient to come out of choline relaxant. Okay.
We discussed it then when the saturation will be falling around 90%, then to improve our bag and mask ventilation, we will give muscle relaxant. That won't reduce the apnea time for us.
I mean, the apnea time is going to get fixed, right? So whatever the duration of apnea, up to 8 minutes, the patient's oxygenation is going to be good. What is the most important thing, when you put the patient in the light plane, what happens when you don't properly paralyze him, when you don't give him proper adequate sedation, his heart rate is going to be high, the tissue oxygen is going to be very high. So what happens, when there is hypodynamic circulation, the oxygen extraction from the alveoli is going to be very fast. So in that case, your FRC is going to come down. Instead of 8 minutes, they can get desaturated within 3 to 4 minutes.
Yes.
Do you get the point?
Yes, sir. My concern was that the patient is desaturating and we are giving muscle relaxant. Isn't it like we are burning our own?
The main purpose of giving muscle relaxant is to make the patient improve the oxygenation. Okay. When the patient is not relaxed at all, whatever maneuvers you're going to try, it is going to be waste, isn't it?
Yes.
And other thing is when you make the patient deep, its oxygen demand is going to come down.
Sir, regarding non-difficult airway management, when do we extubate a patient awake and when do we?
So again, there is an extubation criteria. It depends upon what context the patient is intubated, what additional comorbidities the patient is having, how bad was the intubation during your intubation attempt. Okay, all the things has to be kept in mind whether it's going to be a safe extubation or it's going to be an at-risk extubation. If it is going to be an at-risk extubation, there is a prescribed guidance in the Difficult Airway Society. You're not going to extubate. If it is going to be a safe extubation, you can go and extubate with an LMA exchange. So there are different styles. It depends upon each individual practitioner's experience.
Sir, in spray as you go technique, 2% lignocaine is used or 4%?
Okay, so the dose, that is what I'm telling. So the dose is 9 milligram per kg. Okay, so for example, if it is a 50 kg man, so you can go up to 450 milligrams, right? 450 milligrams. So you have to calculate how much you have given during your nebulization, how much you are given for oral gox, how much you are given for nasal mucosa preparation. So remaining drugs you can use and use it for spray. So irrespective of the concentration, have the mind the dose of lignocaine you're going to use. So 4%, 10%, 2%, all combinations can be used. The more concentration you use, the more faster acting it is. That's the only advantage. But if you keep the dose in mind, you can use any combinations.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, shall we stop here?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Class.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I hope
Thank
it
you,
is clear,
sir.
this class. Thank you very much, guys. See you in some other class.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Recording.
Yeah, we'll upload, don't worry.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.